Julian Savea's journey from the All Black stardom to a tumultuous stint at Toulon is a tale that shocked the rugby world. Once celebrated as a powerhouse winger, Savea's career took an unexpected turn that left fans and critics alike questioning what went wrong. His move to France was supposed to be a fresh chapter, a chance to prove himself in a new environment, but instead it became one of the most talked about declines in professional rugby. Few could have predicted the same player who once dominated international matches would be shockingly cast aside by his new club in such a dramatic fashion. Rising to prominence with the All Blacks, Savea earned the nickname The Bus for his formidable playing style. His ability to steamroll defenders, his raw power and his natural finishing ability made him one of the most feared wingers in world rugby. Fans still remember his jaw-dropping performances in the 2015 Rugby World Cup, particularly his hat-trick against France in the quarterfinals. At that time, he was nearly unstoppable, drawing comparisons to legends like Jonah Lomu. His statistics spoke for themselves, and his reputation as an elite winger was cemented. It was no surprise when New Zealand Rugby offered him a lucrative 4-year contract extension in 2015. Reportedly worth around $800,000 per season. He was a marquee player, a match winner and a fan favourite. However, as the years passed, cracks began to show. While still a capable player, Savea struggled to maintain the same level of dominance. His once blistering speed seemed to fade slightly, and his impact on games became less pronounced. The Hurricanes, his Super Rugby team, did their best to keep him in top form, but the spark that had made him a global superstar seemed to be missing. Opponents began to find ways to counter him, and his place in the starting lineup was no longer guaranteed. He was a stark contrast to his earlier years, where he had been an automatic selection for both club and country. The decline was gradual but undeniable. In 2018, Savea made a high-profile move to the French club Toulon, with expectations soaring. French rugby clubs have a history of signing big-name international stars, and Savea was no exception. Toulon, a club with a strong track record of bringing in world-class talent, believed they were acquiring a game-changing player. The move was seen as an opportunity for Savea to revive his career, rediscover his best form, and help Toulon chase domestic and European success. For Savea, it was also a chance to experience a new rugby culture, while securing a lucrative contract. However, the reality was far from the dream. From the moment he arrived, Savea faced challenges in adapting to the French league. The top 14 is a different beast from Super Rugby, known for its physicality, slower pace, and tactical focus. While Super Rugby thrives on fast, open play, the French league often demands more structured and methodical rugby. Savea struggled to adjust, and it quickly became evident that he wasn't having the same impact he once did. Fans and pundits expected him to tear through defences, but instead, he often appeared out of sync with his new teammates. Whether it was the playing style, fitness concerns, or simply the weight of expectations, something wasn't clicking. The situation escalated when Toulon's outspoken owner, Morad, publicly criticised Savea's contributions. Known for his brash and often controversial remarks, Morad didn't hold back when expressing his disappointment. In an explosive radio interview, he claimed that Savea was no longer welcome at Toulon and suggested that the player should apologise and return home. He even joked about wanting a DNA test, implying that the Savea that they had signed was not the same player who had once dominated for the All Blacks. The comments were brutal, unfiltered and humiliating. It's rare for a club owners to be so openly critical of their players, but Morad had no reservations about making his frustrations known. The public fallout accumulated in the early termination of Savea's contract in 2019, a move that sent shockwaves through the rugby community. It wasn't just about performance, it was about the manner in which everything unfolded. Professional athletes have bad seasons. They have dips in form, but it's uncommon to see a player so openly dismissed in the middle of their contract. Savea had only been a few months into his 2-year deal when the situation imploded. While Toulon had every right to be disappointed if they felt he wasn't living up to their expectations, The way they handled the situation was widely criticised. Savea himself responded with dignity, acknowledging the criticism but remaining professional. He expressed his commitments to improving and working hard, but ultimately had no choice but to move on. The rugby world debated whether he had been treated unfairly, with some believing that he was simply past his prime, while others argued that Toulon's expectations had been unrealistic from the start. Not every player thrives in every league, and transitions between different rugby cultures can be challenging. But regardless of the reasons, the reality was clear. Savea's time in France was over, and he needed to find a new path forward. In the aftermath, Savea faced a daunting task of rebuilding his professional life. His options were limited. Given how public the fallout had been, European clubs were hesitant to take a chance on him. The once feared winger was now viewed as a risky investment. Japan seemed like a possible destination, as the Japanese top league had become a popular landing spot for the international players, offering good salaries and a different style of play. However, Savea ultimately decided to return home, rejoining the Hurricanes in New Zealand. His return to Super Rugby was met with mixed reactions. Some fans were excited to see him back, hoping he could recapture his old form, while others remained sceptical, believing his best years were behind him. While he had moments of brilliance, it was clear that he wasn't the same player who had once dominated the competition. His role with the team evolved, and he became more of a veteran presence rather than a guaranteed game changer. In later years, Savea joined Moana Pacifica in Super Rugby, a move that aligned with his heritage and allowed him to contribute to the growth of the Pacific Island rugby. By this point, he had accepted that his career was in a different phase. He was no longer the unstoppable force of his youth, but he could still add value in different ways. Julian Savea's story serves as a reminder of the unpredictable nature of professional sports and the immense pressure athletes face when transitioning between different leagues and cultural environments. What happened in Toulon was a harsh example of how quickly the narrative can shift in sports. One day you're a celebrated superstar, the next you're being told you're no longer wanted. Savea had experienced the highest highs and now the lowest lows. It also raises critical questions about the support systems in place for players and the expectations placed upon them as they navigate their careers. Athletes are often treated as commodities, judged purely on their performance, with little regard for the personal challenges they may be facing. Rugby, like all professional sports, is a results-driven business. But the way clubs handle difficult situations can have long-term consequences for a player's mental well-being and confidence. Savea's fall from grace at Toulon wasn't just about rugby. It was a brutal lesson in the realities of professional sport. The move that was supposed to reignite his career instead became a painful chapter that he had to overcome. But despite the setbacks, Savea showed resilience. He continued playing, continued fighting, and refused to let one bad experience define him. For fans, his story is a fascinating case study of the fine margins in professional sports. It shows how quickly things can change, how even the best players can struggle under different circumstances, and how brutal the business of rugby can be. Savea may not have lived up to Toulon's expectations, but his legacy as a dominant force in his prime remains intact. His highlights still circulate, his World Cup performances are still remembered, and his impact on New Zealand rugby will never be forgotten. In the end, Julian Savea's journey is not just about what went wrong at Toulon, but about the broader reality of life as a professional athlete. Talent, timing, and opportunity all play a role, and sometimes things just don't work out the way they're expected to. What remains undeniable, though, is that for a period of time, Savea was one of the most electrifying players in world rugby, and no contract dispute or public fallout can erase that legacy. Thanks for watching, and if this is something you enjoyed, please like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.